What's up, guys? Malik Atala here once again. This is my next episode in my Charles Manson series. I hope everybody's having a wonderful holiday season. Like and subscribe, comment. I want to interact with you guys, but this is my next episode. When Manson and the family went to Los Angeles, Charlie wanted to become a rock star and make it in the industry. In places like Laurel and Topanga Canyon, the music scene was hopping. In the 60s, it was an incredibly exciting time musically. There was Joni Mitchell doing Ladies of the Canyon, The Doors, Neil Young there, Jackson Browne, and Glenn Frayne. Very talented people operating up there. People would show up on their front doors looking for audience or some kind of contract connections. Connections to the music industry were numerous. Manson's purpose, his obsession, was to be a rock star. When he was going to require a patron with industry rock stars in LA, he was convinced to make it happen. Manson had his women and he used them as bait. He sent them into those prevalent places to try to make a connection. So one day, two of the Manson women in the family, Patricia Krenwinkel and a woman called Yellow, are hitchhiking, and a fancy car pulls up beside them, and it's Dennis Wilson, the drummer of the Beach Boys. The Beach Boys were really talented with a classic Los Angeles surfer music sound. Manson, his philosophy was that women in the family were totally subservient to the man, and their sole purpose in life was to cater to the men and have children. Anyway, he could exploit or use them, pimping them or what have you. He would do whatever it took to be a rock star. Dennis Wilson took the two girls back with him to his house in Topanga Canyon. He later went off to another recording studio to work on music. When he came back, his house was filled with women and the hippie girls of Manson's family. He walked up to the door, and Charlie Manson opened the door for him, bent down and kissed his feet, and welcomed Wilson into his own home. He was starstruck and overcome with surprise at Charlie and his girls. Wilson was a happy-go-lucky guy that always liked to party. He was loose and liked women indiscriminately. He also liked smoking pot and drinking, living the rock star lifestyle to the fullest. He indulged in the party scene, so at first it was paradise. He liked drugs and women, and Manson could supply both. Manson completely invited his family over to Wilson's residence and enticed him. To Manson, Wilson was his perfect target. Once Charlie got his hooks into you, he doesn't let go. 20 girls and all the guys occupied the house with a very little intense man, Charlie. He would play music in the middle of his living room. They stayed for a while. One of the Manson girls talks about being at the house, walking around the pool with other family members on a beautiful Southern California afternoon. The girls are topless, joints are being passed. It was just so blissful, and that was the 60s. Dennis tells his cousin, Mike Young, to come over to dinner to meet Charlie and the family. He comes over, and they were in a group sex kind of situation. It wasn't Mike's style or cup of tea, so he excused himself to go take a shower. No sooner than he did that, Manson and another woman opened the door. Manson stood there while Mike was in the shower, looked up at him, and said, "You can't leave the group." He said with wide eyes and a maniacal look. His cousin was involved in something so weird it was frightening and freaky to him. He then left with another one of his friends and got out of there. Behind those wide eyes was a desperate and craving musician that wanted to get into the business. Charlie tells Wilson, "Your music is exceptional. You're great." He gives Dennis a false sense of support and to get in his good graces. They would share music together, and Charlie would prevail upon him, looking for a professional recording for his music. Dennis thought Manson was a good intellect. He nicknamed him the Wizard. One quote Dennis said is, "Sometimes the wizard frightens me." Charlie Manson, who is another friend of mine, who says he is God and the devil. He sings, plays, and writes poetry, and may be another artist for Brother Records. Brother Records was the label that the Beach Boys were signed to. Manson wanted a spot. He pursues a professional recording for a while, and later he gets it, a recording, but it's never published. because Charlie could talk such metaphysical mush, Dale Carnegie, the Bible, and homing in on Dennis's insecurities about his own talent. Charlie builds Dennis up. He says, "Your music is good. Your music is exceptional." Wilson was his target because he had influential connections that could launch his own career. At first, there was a lot of fun and frivolity. They were baking marijuana cookies and everything. They ended up living there for a couple of months. It was in the early spring and summer of 1968. Dennis was totally fascinated with Charlie's music and the whole situation, the sex, drugs, and music that is. Dennis paid for a lot of things like food, transportation, medication, one of the most expensive gonorrhea bills in the whole family, for the whole family. The months that the infamous family stayed with him cost Dennis over $100,000. Manson started constantly hitting up Dennis for money. He took advantage of him in all sorts of ways. He gave about 9 or 10 of his gold records, the wardrobe, painting off of his walls. One member of the family totaled out Wilson's brand new Mercedes-Benz. He hadn't gotten insurance on it yet. Despite all of this, Dennis still tried to help Manson with his music, arranging to record Charlie's songs. He took Manson to his cousin's studio at his house, and there was a fully produced record made. It's never surfaced. Some of the songs in that album that Manson recorded had words in it like death, blood, murder. Vincent Bugliosi, the prosecutor, went and asked Dennis for a copy of that tape to use as evidence in the trial. But lo and behold, Dennis said words to the effect that the vibrations in that album and that music was not of this world, and I destroyed the tape. Living with Wilson had other benefits because Manson got to meet other musicians, rock stars. Interestingly enough, the one he seemed to impress most was Neil Young. A quote from a BBC documentary, "I knew Charlie Manson. He was what you would call a songwriter. He was like a song spewer. It was good. It was just a little out of control." Neil Young said that. He took an interest in the music Charlie Manson created. For a few months, however, Dennis Wilson thought Manson was a music genius. He wrote a song called "Cease to Exist." Dennis Wilson brought that song to the Beach Boys, renamed it, switched up the lyrics, and put it as "Never Learn Not to Love" on their new album 2020. Nobody in the Beach Boys knew about it, the origins of the song, so the squeaky clean Beach Boys takes a song written by Charlie Manson and sings on the Mike Douglas show. Dennis took things for the song, like credit for the song, and switched up the lyrics and credited it as his own composition, which infuriated Manson. He was angry. Manson was infuriated. He was very, very upset because Charlie was, again, word is your bond. His shadow in the underworld is running fast. He said Dennis made promises to Manson and didn't keep them. Manson goes looking for Wilson, and at one point leaves a bullet at Wilson's house, leaving a note saying, "I know where you live, I know where your children are, you know what this means." Because he had changed the words to his song, Dennis Wilson was ultimately so terrified of Charlie Manson that he moved out of his own house. He cleared out of there and split, leaving behind his Rolls Royce and his cars and clothes because he was afraid of Charlie, kind of easygoing guy that didn't want any kind of trouble. Charlie always kept pursuing a professional recording deal and never got it. "These Hollywood people, they're all liars," he started saying. "They're pigs," and Manson wanted retribution, revenge.